Welcome back to Friday edition of the Prospect Podcast. I have myself here with Coach D to my left. We have a great guest today, Greg Berge, who's going to talk. We're going to talk a lot about building programs. He does a lot of great stuff with the high school level and really helping and the college level and really helping guys to understand what it takes to build that winning culture, to build a successful leadership group within your organization and obviously specifically in sports. But it's great to have him on. You can find him on Twitter. You see all kinds of content that he produces on there. It's great to have you on, Greg.
Thanks, I appreciate it, and thanks for having me.
No problem. If we could dive into a little bit, your background and how you kind of moved into this space and just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll give you the quick summary, but like a lot of coaches, I went to college and I was kind of a tweener college athlete. I probably could have played Division III-ish basketball or football, and I decided to take the coaching route in college. So I coached with our varsity football team while I was in college. I helped out, and then I coached, like middle school basketball, and really kind of, found my passion at a young age. Got my first teaching job in Lake City. I was a multi-sport coach. I became a head coach at a very young age, replacing a Hall of Fame legend in Minnesota. And, I always had this passion for leadership and growth. And so I became a principal at a young age too, age 32. And probably the toughest decision I had to make, I had to get out of coaching in my prime at age 32. I'd been a varsity coach for 7 years, just coming off a 25-2 season. And I had to get out of coaching to pursue leadership. And so I became a principal, but as luck happened and just fortunate for me, a few years later, I had a superintendent who wanted me and is okay for me to get back into coaching. And so I've been doing both, being a high school principal and a varsity coach for the last 13 years. And so I think have a unique perspective in that I coached at a young age. I stepped away. I saw everything from a different perspective. I saw it from a parent. I saw it from an administrator. I saw it from a lot of angles. And when I came back to coach again, I had changed my whole approach on kind of how I did things. And so I've been doing both. And then having this passion to kind of share and grow, I started speaking to schools and coaches about 4 years ago. I've gone to over 30 schools in the Midwest, presenting leadership and culture workshops. And then that evolved into, I got a lot to share, so I'm going to start writing online. And in March of 2022, I started writing online. I had maybe 500 followers, and I have almost 50,000 today. Then that whole process of writing, I can't swear how that has impacted me in so many ways. I went from writing to, I wrote a book that summer, and then I wrote a course, and then I wrote another book. And so now I've written 4 short books. I've written a bunch of resources and for coaches and courses, and it just keeps growing and evolving. And I'm just happy I can have an impact in a lot of different ways on this profession that I care so deeply about.
It's a profession that is going through a lot of different things.
It certainly is.
Coaching, especially at the high school level. You go to the college level. Obviously, there's opportunities to get more financially compensated, right? When you're at the high school level, that's not as much the same thing, and the culture with parents has changed a lot. I shouldn't say it's changed a lot. It's just become more involved, and then every single year that becomes more the case. Start with that part of the process with the coaches you work with. How do you help coaches that are trying to navigate newer things that are going on with parents and athletes while they're trying to build their program? Because there's a lot of stumbling blocks and coaches get frustrated with that process. How do you help them with that?
I've created a course, Better Coach OS, which is really to help all coaches, but it particularly benefits younger coaches. And I think Number one is to realize when you're a young head coach that the number one job of a coach is to build culture. Okay. I mean, if you talk about things that get coaches in trouble, it's not X's and O's, it's not strategy. It is culture, it's lack of leadership in the program. And that has to be the focus. So building culture, number one, developing leaders on your team, number two. And then I think you really have to control the controllable as a coach. You know, one thing I say is organization shows competence. So if you're organized as a coach and you're organized with parents and you're proactive and you're communicating and you're doing those things, when tough times happen, which they're guaranteed to happen, you're going to fall back on, well, he's putting the time in, he's organized, he's competent, he loves my kid, he trusts my kid, that's really important. And so I think as a coach, you got to build that every day. You got to build relationships with parents, no different than you do with kids. And, you're setting yourself up for success in the long term, not just the short term. And I think that's really important for coaches to remember.
Yeah, that's an important part of it. And what about with because you're an administrator and a coach, I think some of the hard parts for coaches is choosing the right place, navigating administration. Talk about what you think from that standpoint and things that can help coaches, especially head coaches, obviously, that when they're trying to navigate administrations.
Without question, and obviously when the role I'm in as a principal, I am a heavy advocate of coaches, and our AD, who is also a head coach, is a heavy advocate of coaches. And you need those people in systems. You need an AD that's going to support you. You need administration, superintendent, school board that's going to support you. And I've seen all too many in our area throughout Minnesota and all over where you don't have that support. And if you don't have that support, it makes it really tough for a coach. So, one of the things that I talk to when I go speak to schools, I talk about the support needed for coaches and, how important that is. As a coach, I think this organization builds competence is important because you also have to show that your AD, you have to show your administrators, whoever, that you are doing the things that you need to be successful. And so sharing, I send a weekly email every Sunday. I lay out the plan for the week. I use it to not just lay out the plan for the week, but if I need to have a discussion with our parents about something, or I need their support at home on something, I use that as a communication tool. But I also share that with my AD, and I share that with people that need it because they need to see all the behind the scenes stuff that a coach does. And if you don't do that, where there's a void in communication, negativity fills it. And that's a message that parents live through, but it's also from administrators. Like if you don't communicate with them, they can think whatever they want. And you got to control that narrative and control that message.
It's a great point. That's a really great point. I think Dave, and you can jump in on this if you want. I think that the open communication, the more you communicate, even if sometimes it's like over communication, where in terms of you're literally it's going to be the same workout time, the same practice time every single day. But if you're constantly sending that remind or that text or whatever it is, whatever communication tool you use, I just think, like you said, it was great. The organization shows competence, even if it's the same message over and over. I think that the over communication is far outweighs the lack of communication. Like you said, when there's no communication, the mind is just allowed to wander and think of all of the negative things that possibly could, when in reality, you could have eliminated all of that with just a simple communication tool that all of us use, right? And that constant updating, I think that our parents are looking for in that comfort. I think they'd rather be over communicated than under communicated.
Yeah. And, I just read something recently and I can't remember where, but I think it was a study on communication, and it basically proved that point. Like, it is better to over communicate than lack of communication. And people might get annoyed with the over communication, but it's so true that when there's no communication, and I've got experiences with this in so many ways, as an administrator. My daughter's a college athlete. So, I got angles from that perspective. And when you're not communicated, your mind wanders, like you said, and you start thinking of, maybe the worst case scenario or the why, and you overthink it. So, and this goes with players and like defining roles. Like one things that coaches have to do, they got to be brutally honest with kids. They got to clearly define roles, because if you do not do that, their mind starts wandering. And that's so key for coaching.
Yeah, I think communication is obviously an important aspect of it, and being able to make sure you relate what you're doing with them. I think it's also it's interesting, the lack of training for coaches, especially newer coaches out there, like how to become a head coach. Like a lot of guys want to become head coaches, but don't know what that all entails, and then they jump into the job and they're like, holy cow, like coaching is a small part of what I'm doing, because all the other stuff is really, it takes a lot of my time.
That's exactly why I was going to say that is exactly why I created one of my courses, Better Coach OS, because, you go to a clinic. I love going to clinics. I love the X's and O's. I mean, I'm passionate about that. But the reality is, the longer I've coached, the less it's about X's and O's and strategy. Simplicity usually wins. Less is more. And it's all these other things that gets coaches in trouble. It's culture, leadership, disorganization, lack of communication. And so this course I created is basically on everything beyond the X's and O's. And when we go to clinics, 90% of clinics are on X's and O's and strategy. And we need to talk about, how do you build culture? How do you develop leaders? What are the best ways to communicate? How do you stay organized as a coach? Because one thing I tell everyone is, without question, the job that best prepared me to be a high school principal, a leader of an entire school, was being a head coach. Without question. Those jobs parallel each other so much. You're dealing with, outside pressures and parents and people and conflict. You don't get all that when you're going in to be a head coach. You don't understand the dynamics of the job. It's an incredibly dynamic job.
It's a job where the capabilities of the coach have nothing to do with, what their result will be unless they have these things done. So, and that's an important part that I think in the coaching profession, and coaches, obviously they're always enthusiastic. They want to jump right to the good stuff, which everybody wants to do. But it's an important part of what they're doing. The fact that you created that is a big deal. What do you advise other because you're an administrator, what do you advise other administrators in how to leverage those resources to be able to do it? Because my experience, I was a head coach of 4 different places, and I had 0 coaching, and I was a head coach I became a head coach in football after 2 years as an assistant. So I was pretty young. And there was 0. It was like, okay, go win games, So, and I think that's the norm, not what you're talking about, because we could point to, me and Derek have talked about this a lot. Like, we know the places that have some things in place. It's pretty easy to know they win in everything. Okay. And it has 0 to do with who the coach is most of the time. I hate to say that. It's not that those guys aren't really good coaches, because they are, but they've been able to foster their capabilities. And the reason why I bring it up is there's a lot of really good coaches that are either figuring it out on their own, or don't have those resources there. What do we need to do to get more administrators and athletic directors to understand that it's not just, hey, we come in June and say, all right, the season's coming up. Here's what the rules are. Here's what the expectations are of the head coach. Here's what you got to do for equipment, and good luck. You know what I mean? Like, what are, because that culture to me is now, listen, winning or losing is I think comes from a winning culture, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to win. Okay. But you can have a winning culture and a winning atmosphere with where everybody kind of is on the same page. And yes, there's, you might be in a tough division, right? And some years you win, some years you don't, right? Or the type of players you have. But building a winning culture goes to me beyond the wins and the losses. And I think that that's a part that a lot of administrators either don't know how to do because they don't have the experience that you have. And so what are some of the steps that you think they need to start to take to make this culture-wide? Because I feel like we're losing a lot of potentially successful athletes. I feel like it becomes a have and have nots in high school culture, and in sports, and where kids think that they have to go to this school because they know that school has a winning culture, right? They transfer because of those reasons, in some of these states, right? And then it kind of like sets those other places back even more, right? Because of it. I don't know. I put a lot of things out there, but I'm curious your thoughts on it.
Yeah, without question, I think it's about building culture. And yeah, you don't have to win all the time to have a good, successful, positive culture. And I would argue that these schools that kids are transferring in, transferring out, and going, I mean, you might have a quick fix winnable season, but that doesn't mean that they have a good culture. And I think more times than not, you see those schools kind of falter over time because it's this AAU concept. Let's just put together the super team. You see it professional sports as well.
Right.
And, it filters down. But then you see, like, let's take the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, obviously they have great talent. They won, but they won because of a culture they've built in their organization over time. Like, these winning teams still have to build winning cultures. And I think, as an administrator, a good culture in our school is no different than a good culture on our team. And so
100%.
I define culture three ways. It's what you allow, what you emphasize in every day. And so whether it's a school, when I walk through the hall and I see a kid talking to his buddy and they swear, I have a choice. Do I allow that? I mean, I'm not going to maybe discipline the kid and give him detention, but I'm going to address it because that's not
going to give him a heads up.
And if you don't address it, you allow it. And if you allow it, it becomes your culture. And that happens in a school, that happens on our teams as coaches, it happens in programs. And so I think administrators have to understand, what building a culture is all about and how it relates to, our school and building a culture. I don't want to be plugging my stuff all the time, but a lot of what I've created is to answer these questions because I feel like I'm living it every day. I understand the role of a coach, administrator, school, how this goes. So what I just finished is my CLC bundle for ADs. And it's my Team Leader OS, which allows coaches to develop team leaders in their program. It's my new course, Culture Wins OS, which helps coaches build a winning culture. And then it's my Better Coach OS, which is basically everything you need beyond the X's and O's. And I've created this for an AD because we know how AD's jobs are. I mean, my gosh, they're busier than I am. I mean, they're putting out fires left and right.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
I've created this as a one-stop shop where an AD can say, you know what? If I've got a new head coach, here's your onboarding.
This is what,
coach
right, here you go.
Go through it.
Absolutely.
I got a coach struggling with communication. Watch this module, and write a little reflection for me. I got school boards asking, what are you doing to support coaches? Well, I've got this whole program, and I don't have to do anything with it. Team Leader OS, I get that to all my coaches, and it's on them to use it with their team. Same thing with Culture Wins OS. So I'm providing the resources, and I can, and then, you combine that with like something simple, like reading my newsletter each week. And now you've got all your coaches talking about, hey, we had this resource this week on momentum, and let's talk about momentum and what that means. So you're creating a culture as an AD, and this culture this is how we do things. This is the right way to do things. And it doesn't guarantee winning, but it guarantees a culture that fosters an environment to win, which is what you need for the long term in schools like ours.
Well, Greg, I think also through that, you're also creating uniformity within the same, the same building, right? I mean, we would love it if all our coaches bought into what we're preaching, like, and we get it, right? Each sport has its own separate little entities, whether it's, a fall sport, a winter sport, spring sport, summer, male, female, right? Like all of these things, but overall they can encompass, you're all still within the same athletic department, correct?
Yeah.
And you can look at it, you want to treat everyone individually, but you also want to have a sense of pride within each team where, yes, there's uniformity. And then within that uniformity, I think when it comes to parents and multi-sport athletes, there is some carryover from sport to sport to sport where they know at least the coaches that are still in this school all together collectively have the same vision. And, the athletic director is pushing that, and the principals and VPs are pushing that. So now, especially a public school where now you go to a board and you may have board members with, their own certain agendas and things of that nature. And I don't like this and I don't like, but at least now all those coaches can come together and say, look, this is our structure. This is our process. This is how we do things. Make those professional development days structured where it's actually an asset, and teachers and coaches are excited to go to that and be a part of that, where they can take something away and it's actually useful, right? Because I taught for 10 years, high school special ed, middle school special, all of those things where you're encompassing those professional development hours and date. Like, let's actually do something that we can really use, where we can implement it. And yes, I would love feedback, to give feedback to my athletic director where they're open to, hey, let's talk about this, or how do we make this work? Because I don't care what it is. Sports drive culture within a building, no matter what anybody wants to say.
Yep.
I get it, right? Outside people are coming into a building for a sporting event, right? They may come for the chemistry fair. They may come for the art show. They may come for the play, but it's very separate, one-stop shopping, right? It's only there for that event, and then that's it. Whereas sports, you're there for multiple games a season. Like, that's what drives it. And that's just where I think the focus can help, right? And you can help everybody within the building, because, coaching is teaching. You're not a good teacher. You're not a good coach. I don't care what it is. So we are all the same in that facet. It's just, hey, you're using, I'm using a football or a basketball as my driving force, and you're using a pen or a pencil or whatever it takes. But together, collectively, we're all together in this. And I just think that that's where administrators sometimes need to take that administrating hat off and really sit down with coaches and develop something that, how do we all work together where we can be on the same page, and then collectively the school, right? Now that all together, now we're all really one. And now that's when, and the kids see that, right? Like, they know exactly what coaches don't get along with other coaches because of whatever. Like, that's where it all has to come together to be one for all of us to be successful.
Yeah. And I think as a leader, and I equate being a principal and a coach, there's so much similarities between both, but, number one job, create culture, build leaders. As a principal, I'm developing teacher leaders, right? I'm creating culture. I'm developing teacher leaders. And then the third thing is we're creating systems. So as a principal, my job is to create systems that are ongoing, that are going to allow things to run great even when I'm gone. Like, for me, a perfect classroom, there's a system. I mean, I could be gone as a teacher and it almost runs itself because kids know.
Absolutely. That's exactly.
School's going to run itself. There is a system in place.
Oh, absolutely. Like, something to fall back on, right? Like, you don't need that. I don't need to be walking the halls every day monitoring, and I shouldn't have to be looking into classrooms and micromanaging and doing all those things. Once the system's in place, everything is aligned, and now it like you said, it runs itself, right? Where now you can focus on the other aspects of, maybe something is a little lesser, we need to work on this, or maybe something's not working, and you go look at those things and actually dive into it with some sense of detail rather than just constantly be running around and putting out fire. There shouldn't be that many fires if the system is in place and
I
right.
agree.
And I think the other thing too is like not every system works for every place. It's very different. Like, you know, you have to know your building, know your culture, and that's always evolving as well. So,
and I think it needs to be
awareness, I
broad.
think,
So like systems allow you to change and grow if you have a good system. And so when I created this like CLC bundle, it's a system for an AD because I know they have no time to create anything like this. There's nothing.
Zero.
Half of them are assistant principals doing discipline all day. And so
all day. Like,
all day. And so you have a system in place that is flexible. And I've really made this like too good to pass up. It is a one-time fee. You get to add coaches year after year for free. It's a lifetime access because obviously there's a profit there for me, but I'm really creating it to help schools and ADs with what I think they need. And I've gotten good feedback. And the last thing with the system that I think ADs really need to do, and this is a part of this as well, but you think of the captain's council concepts that a lot of schools have. Okay.
Yeah.
You
a lot
have
of
teams.
teams have adopted that. Yeah. A lot
you
of
have it
teams
in
have
teams, but I think as a school, as an AD and a principal, we work together on this. At least monthly, we get school leaders together, student athletes together, might be 20 minutes. And we are going to do a couple things. Number one, we're going to talk about things that might be going on in our area, in our region, nationally, as it relates to sportsmanship, leadership, culture, whatever. We're going to address it now, right, with our leaders. But then we're also going to use it. And I have a Culture Wins curriculum. It'll be like a 5-minute video on a concept. And we're going to watch the video. We're going to talk about it, discuss it. So we're building culture, building leadership, building commitment, building those things. Growing and talking. And really what we're doing is we're molding and influencing young people. And that's really what leadership is. Leadership is influence, nothing more. And all we're trying to do is influence them to make good decisions when they need to make good decisions, because you don't want to be, you want to be proactive. You don't want to be reactive, especially when you're dealing with schools and teams. So again, I don't want to plug my stuff, but that's everything I've created is for the coach, AD, principal in mind, because I feel I'm living it every day and I kind of understand the needs.
And you've also been through it. Like your feet have been through the fire, right? And a lot of these things are probably from issues or mistakes, or you tried this and it didn't really work. And I think Dave can attest to this. You know, when we're talking about the leadership aspect, being a leader is extremely difficult in any facet, especially in today's world with social media, where everybody has a platform to speak out and everybody thinks that their way is a better way. I think the younger generation, it's very, very difficult. And we talk about this all the time. When you look at your team, when's the last time you saw a true captain that just kind of takes everything on their shoulders, and they, you know, they're not everybody's friend. They're willing to have those hard decisions at a very young age. That's really, really difficult in today's era where, you know, anybody can say anything out there. How do you feel, Coach, that we can develop? I mean, I know your program with leadership and whatnot, but how do we feel? How can we get our younger generation to be more leadership oriented and take control and be the captain? Because some guys shy away from it, right? Like they just don't want that title. They don't want anything to do because of, you know, the constant, you know, I guess negatives that go with being a leader, because you have to have those hard conversations. How do we teach not only our young student athletes, but maybe some of your teachers that are coming into it for the first time about how do we create that leadership within that generation and that those types of mini cultures within our overall culture?
Yeah, I think first of all, as coaches, we have to understand what leadership truly is, and then we have to train. And you can't, so many coaches just hope, wish, and wait for leaders to show up. And yeah, you might get that once in a generation kid who's a pretty natural leader that, oh yeah, we got leadership this year. No, your job is to develop leaders. And some years it's harder than others. And I think, you know, one thing is define leadership. And I tell our kids every year, leadership is influence. That's it. How do you influence our team? if you're sitting on the bench with bad body language, you are negatively influencing the team. That is negative leadership. If you are clapping and applauding for your teammate, if you're giving high fives and fist bumps, that's positive leadership. You're building contagious positive energy. Like that's
and it's something so small. It's something so small.
Totally.
That a little encouragement on, the guy that's not as good as you are, maybe per se, right? And you don't have to be the best player on the team to be a great leader. That's, I think, a misconception when it comes to especially sports itself. Absolutely. We do it all the time.
We're at fault for that. And so I talk about a lot this concept of collective leadership with our kids. And what does that mean? We're all leaders. Okay, leadership is influence. So we're all leaders. And number two, the best player does not have to be a leader. As a coach and as a society and as a community, I had this conversation with a kid I coached 20 years ago who was talking about our current team and a player and leadership. And I had this whole discussion with him, like, you guys want him to be a leader? He might not be ready to be a leader yet. And 100%. If I put a kid in a leadership role that's not ready and doesn't want it, it's going to be a disaster. You know what? That sixth kid on the bench can be just as good a leader as that kid who's got the ball in his hands all the time. And, I'll give you a testament to this. My son's great. My son was probably our 9th man on our, we went to state tournament. We ended up taking 3rd place at state. We lost, going back to the whole transfer discussion that you had. First round
so it's rampant. It's rampant in Minnesota as well, Coach. Like, it's all good. It's the same world up there. Yeah.
We're a smaller school in Minnesota. We go to the state tournament. We are rewarded with playing Minnehaha Academy, who has Chet Holmgren and Jalen Suggs on their team. 2 NBA lottery picks on a small school in Minnesota. We gave them a battle. Anyway, we lost. We ended up taking 3rd in state. But on that team, the best player on our team is now a starter at Iowa State, Nate Heisey, and a great player. He was a leader in a certain way on our team, but he also maybe wasn't ready to lead in other ways on our team. My son, our 9th man on our team, was, energy giver, just a supporter of and brought positive energy. He was a big part of our success. He didn't play a lot. He wasn't on the court a lot. He was our 9th man, but yet one of our best leaders. And so you have to, as a coach, you got to open that up for your team and not put all the pressure on a certain guy to be the leader. Yeah, maybe when the game is on the line and the ball needs to be in someone's hands, yeah, that kid's that type of leader at that moment. But that doesn't mean they're your locker room leader. That doesn't mean that they're your practice leader. And you would love for that to happen, but you got to embrace collective leadership and have these discussions with kids. And that's really what my course does, is it guides people through that process. But we are to blame as coaches for a lot of this, because we put kids on pedestals. We say, if only that kid would be a leader, and they're not. And then that's the reason we're not successful. No, you got to build and develop leaders. And I really believe that as a coach.
What is the transition for a coach to realize that this guy is now ready to be a leader? What is that? How do coaches recognize that? I think that's an issue that a lot of coaches deal with. They don't. They're not able to recognize someone who is a leader. They don't necessarily know what those traits are, and they don't know how to identify when there's potentially negative leadership either, right? So what I mean by that is there are players that are sometimes popular but question everything. You know what I mean? And so they can form cliques and those kind of things. How do and honestly, most coaches are like, it was something that I felt I was just instinctively pretty good at, but it wasn't taught. You know what I mean? So how do coaches learn how to identify those kind of characteristics and traits in a player?
How I define the growth of leadership is the first step is the one that is missed so often, and that is lead by choice. What I mean by that is kids have to choose to want to lead, right? we can't assign leadership to kids that don't want to lead. That's a disaster for a team. So the first step is making the choice to lead. The second step is you have to lead by example, and you do that through your words and actions, right? You lead by what you say and what you do. And that's the next step. And so as you're talking with kids, this is an ongoing process for me. Like, I am working on leadership with our kids when they're in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade at a camp. Like, I'm trying to develop them into the leaders that we're going to need later on. And you have these ongoing conversations with them, and you want them to go from leading by choice to leading through words and actions to then leading out loud. Okay. And, the very pinnacle of leadership is inspirational leadership. And those are those people that can inspire others to be something different than they thought they could be. That's the pinnacle of leadership. That's leading, but with actions, leading out loud, everything. But there's a progression that kids have to go through. And so, I'm talking with some of our seniors going into this year that really need to, they lead by example. Okay. They have made the choice to lead, but, verbally, that's the next step. And so how do you become a verbal leader? I always tell them the first thing you do is you lead with high fives, fist pumps, pats on the back, because that doesn't require you to vocalize anything, but it's a way of leading out loud. And it's kind of the first step. So if you can do those things, hey, nice job, good pass, those positives, that opens the door to now be more of a vocal leader when things don't go your way. And the other thing with that is, there can be guys on the bench that don't play a lot that are your best vocal leaders. Give them permission to be a vocal leader. Give them the power.
Right.
Like, it's okay for you to get on a kid who's playing a lot and be vocal, because you're helping our team. A great story, the Josh Pastner story, when he was at Arizona, he was a freshman walk-on. They won the national championship, and Josh Pastner was the best leader on their team. Never played. He was a walk-on, and the whole team knew it. He led them as a leader to that point. You don't have to be a player, a star to be a leader. And as coaches, we got to give permission to those kids to lead.
Right. And I think allowing your players almost a sense of ownership within that itself, right? Because some guys are timid to, hey, that's coach's job or that's so-and-so's job. No, like, this can be yours as well, right? I think that whenever you create, to me, with players, right, especially for me coaching a high school, when you allow them a little bit of ownership with what's going on with the team, that, maybe as a middle school player or as a younger player, kind of, they knew that line where coaches and players kind of, if you allow that to gray a little bit, I think that just allows the ownership itself, allows them to take another step into the investment that they put into what they're going to do, right? Hey, coach, we don't really like this tradition that's been going on. Can we do this, right? Or, hey, coach, that drill and like, we're not really about that, right? And look, there are some times when they come up with some craziness and you're like, absolutely not, right? They understand that more so than just them always kind of thinking, well, we don't really have any, anything in this, right? Because coach just tells us what to do, we go do that. I don't think that's the society that we're in anymore. I think everybody, going back to social media where everybody's voice is out there, I just think allowing players to have some type of ownership within the team can benefit way more than a negative, because they just feel more a part of it. And that's kind of what we're working with now. Everybody wants to feel a part of it. Dave and I have this discussion all the time. To be the old head, when we were in school and we played, not everybody played sports. Now the participation aspect of it with parents, I feel they force a lot of their kids into sports because it's, hey, if we want to be like everybody, then they need to do this or they need to do that. It was okay to not play sports when we were in school, and that was just as fine. We can all sit at the same lunch table. Not everybody had to go to practice at the end when the bell rang, right? Some guys went off to work and did their thing, and that still happens. But I just feel like now, and Dave sees it even more so because he's more in the youth sports world right now, that everybody just has to be a part of sports. And that's not necessary at all, especially now in college football, where you can see, teams are now incorporating more of a social media, and there's a media department for everybody. And there's, GM statistics that have to go into it, where, the management of a team, there's a lot more off the field stuff where you don't have to be a participant in sports and actually playing the game to really contribute and help that team be successful, right? You talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, how the organization itself has an overall view, right? They're all aligned in what they're doing. And a lot of that happens off the court. The players and the success of that is just a byproduct of the structure and how each one of those individual people feel a part of it. It's why when somebody, like, the rings don't just go to the players on the field and the coach, like, it goes to everybody, because you've all done your part of it. So, and it's the same within a school, right? Like, when we're successful, it's everybody. So I think that's something that's key.
And I think, obviously youth sports are incredibly important for kids because they develop skills that they don't get in other facets of their life. And so, but youth sports is, to me, about participation. And then as you get older and it gets more competitive and you get to that varsity level, it changes and it shifts. And so now it's not as much about participation. That's what intramurals are in college. Like, I mean, people want to play, but you all can impact a team in a lot of different ways, right? And if you got 15, 16 guys on a basketball team and you're playing, 7 kids consistently every night, 8, I'm very upfront with parents at our preseason meeting. Like, I'm just telling you right now, we will play in a competitive game 7 to 8 kids. That means 7 to 8 aren't going to get to play in a competitive game. Now, if we ever have a game that's less competitive, I am going to do everything in my power to get everyone in that game. But we all impact the team in so many different ways. And, as coaches, we would love to play. Like, we don't get to play, right?
That's why we do this.
We're still influencing the game and the team a whole lot. And the same thing with those guys on the bench. You got to give them ownership and responsibilities and leadership to impact the team in so many ways, whether it's a practice or whether it's in the game or whether it's, being a vocal leader on the bench, whatever it may be. And the best coaches are able to kind of collectively do that. And it's not easy. That's why coaching is such a dynamic job.
That's why you need to be coached as a coach. How many guys, Dave can attest to this. How many coaches we have come on that, they're looking to be coached, and it has nothing to do with, hey, this offense or that defense or the X's and O's. Like you said, your program itself lays out a foundation, a structure of how to coach beyond the white lines, beyond when the lights are off. Because, again, going back to the original point, that's where coaches screw up and lose their jobs and all those other kind of things, is because they go into it like a very young head coach at a program that's like, it was, hey, you played Division I football, you went to school here, you're the head coach, go, right? Because for the most part, and coach, you're the rarity, right? Where you're a hands-on principal, a hands-on athletic director. A lot of times these guys have so many things going on, putting out fire, pressure from people above them, that coaching coaches, it isn't a thing. Right? You expect the guy you hire, like some of this, I hired you for a reason, go do your thing. Even with that, if you hire somebody that is obviously your guy and you think can get the job done, you still need to coach your coaches on a regular basis as to the constant updates. Change so fast. We've seen, high school recruiting change in just 6 months, a year. I mean, it is totally different than it was 6 months ago. And if you're not constantly evolving and tweaking and changing these types of things, you're going to be left just sitting there with your palms up going, wait, what do you mean I didn't do what I needed to do? Or this is why am I not successful? You need to constantly be on that and have a structure of, how do I get better? And if you don't want that, then this is the right spot for you.
Yeah. And that's, I think, with all leadership, leaders need mentors. leadership, most people don't know what they're going. Their first true leadership role, they have no idea. I mean, everything goes through you. You can be an assistant coach forever until you step in that head role. You have no idea. You just don't know until you know. And, you can tell. I've been in it long enough where I can interview a teacher who's a coach, and I can say they're going to be a really good head coach. Like you know it when you see it, but
Right.
you need mentors. You need to develop those skills and work with people that can help support you along the way. And your 80s just don't have time to do that. So how do you help them knowing that they don't have the time to do that?
It's really unfortunate,
Yeah, it is. I have one final question. I think this is burnout with coaches, which is a big thing. A lot of fantastic coaches burn out for whatever reason. There's various reasons. Could be, and I mean, like guys that are successful, like you see, you see it. Jimmy Johnson, who's most successful coach in the NFL and the Hall of Fame. I mean, he went right into the broadcasting. He had burnout from Jerry Jones, right? So, but it happens to a lot of coaches, some very successful coaches, and they decide, hey, it's their time. How do we get more coaches to really be able to? Because the pace is the hardest thing, right? You want to be successful. You go, and then guys look up in like 10 years or 20 years, and they're like, oh, in 20 years, people don't realize if you start coaching at 25, that you're only 45 years old. So,
I mean, Greg, you were very Dave, you were very young, you know what I mean? Like to take over that leadership role. I mean, and you're also viewed a different way when you're younger, right? Like some guys think because they're older, kind of, look at you a certain way or kind of push you around or whatever that stuff, like all that stuff, I think it's just, like you said, burnout. Like, whoo.
How do we get them to like be able to find a long-term approch,
sustain it for such a long, you know what I mean?
Yeah, prevent
right,
burnout.
Dave? Like,
Yeah, it's interesting because I would say this is so at age 30, so I head coach at 26, coached for 7 years, became a principal, had to get out. A small part of me, and I'm 32, 33 years old, right? A small part of me, when I got out of coaching at age 33 or whatever it was, had like a little bit of a sigh of relief because I was an all-in type of guy. I was an all-in type of guy. I had, a couple young kids, wife's a teacher, and I become a principal, and it's kind of like, breathe that sigh of relief. And then, I was out for a couple of years and coaching youth, and I get the juices back and I got to get back in. But I mean, I was an all-in type of guy. And I tell you what I've learned, I've been back now 13 years doing both. So I'm, you could say I'm busier. Obviously I'm a high school principal. I'm doing this and I got my side stuff that I'm doing, right? Like this is a hobby.
Your passion projects, right?
Yeah, my passion project. And, my kids I'm an empty nester. They're both, in college or, in the real world. And, but what I've learned over time, and I don't know that the earlier that you can do this, the better as a coach. Less is more, simplicity wins. You have to learn how to pick and choose what's important. And you need to have people with you that help alleviate some of the stressors and challenges of the job. And I've got some people that support us in our program that do that are unbelievable. But I'm also a lot more selective, like the off season. I have been passionate from the get-go. Our off-season program is called the 300-Hour Club, and I really encourage kids to get in the driveway, okay, to become a better player, old school way, like we probably did. And we set up a culture that tries to encourage them to do that. They earn hours. They can earn hours from playing multiple sports, making the honor roll, obviously basketball-related activities, weight room, speed camp, things like that. But I'm encouraging a culture is what I'm doing. I don't get in the gym 5 days a week with the kids and put all these skill sessions together. I want them to get better individually, right? Because I need my sanity as a coach too. And
oh God, yeah.
And I see people that get burnt out. They're in the gym 3 times a week. They're opening them for 2-3 hours. They're bringing in these kids. They're doing skill stuff, and then their teams really don't get better. And then, you know, I look at our program who's had a lot of success, and we've truly tried to create a culture that fosters personal growth in the off season. Now we still have leagues and we still do things to, you know, bring our team together, but I've learned that you got to pick what's really important. And it's a skill that I think you develop with age that helps you do that. And that it helps with burnout. It just does. You got to pick and choose your battle. We practice hour and a half a night. We don't go more than that. As the season gets on, we might be done in an hour and 15 minutes. Because I've learned also within the strategy and X's and O's of what really is important to us, what you need to be able to be successful and to win, and to basically filter out all the other stuff. So how do you pick and choose what's really important? That's key. You know, one of my favorite little slogans is coaches, leaders need to live by and learn the 20-40-60 rule. The faster you go through this rule, the better. In your 20s, you worry about what other people think. In your 40s, you don't care what other people think. And in your 60s, you realize no one was thinking about you to begin with. Okay? And so I'm not in my 60s, but I feel I've learned this. I've gone through this progression fast, right? In your 20s, yeah, you're worried about what other people. You can't please everyone. You need to get over that hurdle young. And then you got to realize, I really don't care. I am doing the best job I can. I am busting my butt. I am building the program the right way. I am building culture. I don't care what other people think because I know I'm doing what's best for our team. The sooner you get to that point, the better. And then when you get to this understanding that, you know what, those parents, those people, they're not talking about you at the dinner table. They really aren't. They have their own lives. And I think sometimes young coaches think, you know, I've had coaches that are scared to go to the grocery store because they might run into a parent. Yeah. And I mean, that causes burnout.
Dave, tell me, we've seen it. I mean, look, it's a reason for me personally. Yeah. For me personally, that I never coached within, you know, a certain range of where I, you know, resided, right? I was willing to drive, you know, 30 miles away to coach where it was because I didn't want to have that. I wanted my personal life separate from, you know, that aspect of it. And it's another thing, Greg, like, you know, that a lot of that parent interaction, you know, and it goes back to, for me, the social media where everybody has a voice now or whatever. It's just so different than even when you started, even as a principal, right? There is open, direct communication where parents can literally email you, call you. They can get in touch with you as a coach 365 days a year, 7 days a week, regardless of what time it is, because kids don't know clocks. They do not care. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning and you're getting a message or whatever. That is very difficult, especially with the burnout aspect, because and I think we saw a lot of it, especially where we are here, Central Jersey, with COVID, where when everything was shut down, coaches saw the amount of time they were investing into their programs, what they were doing, and to now have to take a step back. For some guys, it was like, wow, like this is really an eye-opening experience where maybe I don't have to do all of these things for us to be successful. I'm a big quality over quantity guy. You know, I love the head coach that I work for, the administrators that I work for. They are great in that, hey, get done what you need to get done and get out, right? Just go do your thing. My final question, right, Greg, is, you know, when we're talking about ownership, right, and you're talking about the culture that you've developed, where go to the driveway, how do we push that on our kids, and at what level does it separate where they need to do and take it on themselves and take ownership, and then where is, you know, it too much, where we're doing too much for them? Where, hey, you gotta go find a way, man. If you want to be really good at this and get your shots up, I'm not opening the gym every morning at 5 a.m. I shouldn't have to do that if you really care that much. Where is that, and how do we break that fine line? Can you give us any tips on how that works? Because that's a really hard dynamic to figure out. I understand it's program to program or culture to culture. It's school to, you know, some you can't do that, right? Because look, where you are, where we are, we have a winter right? Like they can't go out and get shots up in the winter. They got to figure out a way. Where am I doing too much for them as a coach, and where do they need to now go and take it upon themselves to push them to get to that point?
You know, it's a
Is there
societal
an answer? Yeah, is there an answer? I don't really know.
It's a societal issue because we're, you know, when we grew up, we're going to the park and we don't have adults that are organizing, structuring everything we do. And now kids grow up and everything is structured for them. Everything is signed up. There's less free play, and kids need free play, right? I still think as a coach, we can foster, create, and develop that. And this is where it's about culture for me. So in our program, our whole mindset, our whole mantra of our program is no deposit, no return. Okay. And that's purposeful. You get out of life what you put into it. You get out of school what you put into it. You get out of basketball what you put into it, right? It's not me creating that for you. Now I'm trying to create the culture and the opportunity for you to do that. So yeah, are we going to open up the gym? Are we going to find ways for kids to get in the gym? Yeah, but I'm not going to bring you through skill sessions where I am, you know, leading you through it. Like I'm going to give you the tools,
right,
and the resources for you. And this is all about, this is a personal responsibility thing too, right? Like as society, you know, we need accountability for personal responsibility, and this works with sports too. Like go get better. I'm going to show you how to get better. I'm going to tell you what you need to do to get better. I'm going to tell you how you can get better, but it's up to you to go do that. And we can't program kids. And I think there's too much of that from a society perspective. As a coach, we can create a culture that encourages that. You know, I always say your job in the off season, get better in the off season, work on your weaknesses, work on getting better. And then when we get together in season, it's all about us. It's all about team. It's all about we. You know, the off season's for you, the in season's for us. And that's really a message and a culture that we have to share if that's what we want with our program and team.
Great point.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Really unbelievable points today. Like learning, you know, for coaches how to become leaders, how to affect that across the organization, and then administrators do that. It's important. Where can they find you? Where the best place to locate you, and if they have questions, want to follow up.
Yeah, I mean, on Twitter, that's probably where I'm most active. It's at GB1121. And then I have a website that has all of my resources, some of which we talked about today, and that's just gb1leadership.com. And so those are probably the two biggest places. And I reply to everyone. I get a lot of people that DM me. I get coaches that will DM me.
Yes, you do, Coach. I appreciate it.
And I reply to everyone. I just, you know, I feel strongly about that, that if coaches are asking for help, I'm going to find time to respond and give my 2 cents worth, whatever I can do to help. So, yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on. This is a great conversation. And yeah, thanks again for having me.
Well, Greg, enjoy the rest of the summer.
Coach, really.
We really appreciate it. Have a great summer, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
Excellent stuff. Really good stuff there.
Love getting an administrator's point of view.
Yeah. Very, really important to get it. And he's still a coach at the same time still. So
good for him, right?
I think like he's the rarity, you know. And
of course,
it's an interesting thing because I think that who we have on that talked a lot about the development of the coaches that needs to happen. There was a couple of people about
it's been more of a recent trend, to be honest. I think, David.
Yeah.
Like some of these guys that we've now had on talk about, you know, you got to coach your coaches. There's no a lot of the guys, right? Like a lot of these recent guys that we've had talk about, you know, nobody tells you how to handle a lot of this stuff when you become a head coach, regardless of sport, right? Because there's just so much, especially now. I think it's been increased with the workload of what a head coach actually has to do. You are so much more of a CEO of a program, of a company and a group than you are an actual ball coach, right? I forget who was on, was talking about how Ryan Day had to figure that out at Ohio State. And we're talking about it at the highest levels that guys just take on. You reference like a Chip Kelly, who has been a head coach at the highest of levels and now stepped back from that to go back to, no, I just want to be a play caller. I just want to be a coordinator. Because, yeah, at the lowest, even at your youth level, you are so much more like Dave. I always said that you're the rarity, right? Like a guy that actually coaches, like calls plays while being a head coach, right? Like that is so difficult to do on a regular basis, just with all of the things that arise that are unexpected, right? He talked about the little fires that you have to put out on a daily basis as an administrator, where you can't really devote that time to perfecting that in terms of, all right, I'm the offensive coordinator, we're calling these plays, or we're doing this. Your head is spinning everywhere else. It's why you really have to hire great people around you. And I'm glad that he referenced that too, to handle those things and kind of say, hey, look, you have to take the offense and understand and put it in place, because I have to go handle this in terms so that we can all be successful. It's really difficult to manage those things in whatever role you are, head coach, principal, athletic director. There's just so much going on that if your coaches aren't on the same page and can't handle those things, now you're going to have issues that are going to take away from everything.
Yeah, I think high school, well, it depends on your sport. A lot depends on your sport, but football in particular has a lot more components to it. I think that,
and especially because with football, you're working with the most amount of guys, sheer numbers wise, right? Like, basketball, 15 kids, right? Or, some of these other sports where you have lower numbers allow you to do more. Football, I mean, you're talking rosters mostly for 40 and above, right? Like that's a lot on the plate. And now moving into an athletic director role, you're talking about every student under the roof, or a principal, every student under the roof. Like, how do we get all of this stuff in line if you don't have really good people that are in the middle for that, or can handle certain things? Like, that is a serious issue. And a lot of what it goes down to, we're fortunate to have worked for some really, really good people. And then we've worked for some not so good people that really understand the intricacies of how to make those things work and be successful. But, and I don't think there's there's definitely not one cookie cutter way of doing things. I can give you the foundation of it, but you have to ultimately mold it to what works for you, and what works for one might not work for some others. And that's regardless of what it is. There can be a general overall type of situation where, hey, this is what worked for me, but you got to really tweak it to, what school you're in, what program you are, what age level you're working with. Is it a male or a female sport? Like all of those types of things, like geographically that plays a factor into it. The previous culture as to what maybe plays a huge role. I'm seeing that a lot more like where I'm at right now, where the tradition aspect and what used to be sometimes leads into what is now, right? So each stop you have and each place you are is its own little intricacy that you got to figure out and make it work.
I think that's a big part. You got to figure those things out, and it's
right.
The burnout is a big issue for coaches.
It's actually almost scary to a point, right? Where you see, I mean, do we, we shoot a text or we call and we're like, wow, hey, this guy's stepping down. Like, wow, like I wonder what happened, right? That's the first question. I wonder what happened. Right. And there might be absolutely nothing that happened. They just are done. Like it's too much. They need a break. Right. And now with, I think, the mental health side coming into the forefront, right, and a lot of people really kind of pushing and making, society aware of all of those things. I think that's another big aspect of it, guys, male, female coaches in general, just leaders in general, are kind of like, taking their health into account and saying, hey, this might not really be good for me.
Well, that's a great point. It's an important aspect that needs to be understood, like finding out what allows these guys to be leaders. I think that overall leadership is a very, very difficult, ambiguous topic that everybody draws a lot of, like, this is what a leader is. Like, we know a good leader when we see one, but we don't always know.
Hard to define. Right?
And we don't know what the development aspect is to it, and we still to this day rely a lot of it on, like, literally genetics, like the meaning genetics, like if this guy's
he's a natural, like, oh, he's a natural born leader, right? Like, how many times did you, I'm sure you got it, I got it, right? Like, I'm not, trying to be arrogant or pompous here, but like, yeah, I had the ability to talk to anybody on the team, regardless of role, and get them to buy into whatever I wanted to buy into. And that wasn't just, the teams I was on, that was within the entire school, or even at the higher levels, right? Like, I always thought of myself as, I'm the middle ground between our coaches and our players, that I can go back and forth without being the kiss ass, right? Or the whatever, make us go. Guys will listen to me regardless. Now, that being said, it wasn't the era of social media where, guys are willing to behind a phone and say whatever they want, right? When it comes to that. And then when you get face to face, it's something different. I think that is something that's, I don't want to say recently come into the forefront, but it's a newer component that now you have to navigate, which is extremely difficult, right? A conversation with the leader or the head of our youth organization last night. And, just in talking to him through the years that he's done this and talking about how much things have changed and how much the parent communication has increased and whatnot, and the why questions as to why we're doing things, and who has a better idea, and if you don't use that idea, then somebody feels a certain type of way, or there's just all of those things that have changed. I used to I always, you could kind of see a track for guys that, or people that are leaders, and kind of either how they were raised, or even within the professions they choose, right? Like, a lot of leaders are usually, they do that for their day job as well. They're in a leadership type of role that take on those things. But how we get more people to take on, they don't have to be the alpha leader, but how can you be a leader, within or the main human, right? Like, that's where I think we can add an educational component to help people that want to be that, but maybe they just don't know how to become that because it's not natural to them. I mean, look, you and I can look back on our teams, right? And you can leaders. And when you had teams that were led by certain players, right? Because, a good team is led by coaches, a great team is led by players. I'm sure you can name that guy on every one of your highly successful teams. And on your less successful teams, I'm sure there were lessers of those types of people or players, anything of that nature. Or your assistant coaches weren't, didn't have that knack to them. Yes, I think it's something that genetically some people are just programmed to work with people and be more of a leader. But I also think it's something that can be developed as well.
I will say this. So culture is really important. The number one, so that's for sustainability.
That's the other key part, Dave.
Talent.
Sustainability.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Talent is the key for, if you were like, those are things that we have to start to, and that's why I brought it up. There's a difference between building a great culture, which gives you sustainability, and then having, a talented team. Like, so you could be a very
You
talented
can win
team.
1 year.
You could win with a talented team. So building culture takes time. And
And are we
obviously,
allowing that time to happen?
I mean, I don't know. Listen, I've only had the time once. So
Think
I
about society, Dave, right? Like if you don't win in 3 years, you're fired. So I think that plays a key role to it too. I'll give me the ample amount of time to develop and put in place the systems like Greg talked about, which I think it's a huge component, right? Because if you don't have a system in place, then that just basically disorganization, which now, okay, disorganization leads to what, right? Like it's just not a good thing. If you're a disorganized just person in general, you're really kind of like by the seat of your pants. And yes, you may be successful sometimes, right? Because, talent can trump some of that. But if you want to sustain it and win on a consistent basis, then that takes a different type of system that has to be implemented and worked through to work, right? Like I really kind of look at like Greg Schiano at Rutgers, like he has a very firm, hard system in place, but has that, right? Like he's been given ample amount of time, even on the second time around here, right? Like he's been given ample amount of time to be successful. And when given that, yes, has he had success? The ultimate success? No, but success in terms of taking the program from one place to another in a positive manner. That's another thing I think comes into place. Like, how do you define success? Some programs and athletic directors and school board are okay with a team going 5-5 and making the playoffs maybe every other year, but there's no issues, whatever. Some guys, we got to win. And if we don't win, then you're not the right person for it, right? And that's kind of just how some people view it, or some administrators view it, and others not so much. So how does the place you're at define success, right? Because everybody knows that wins and losses, even at a 5-year-old game, grandpa asks, did you win? Right? Like that's all part of it. Wins and losses ultimately are how everybody gauges success. And I don't know if that's really true, right? Like we can go 500 every year and every one of my kids has over a 3.5 GPA, goes to college, and ultimately becomes a positive member of society. Isn't that success? Like it's hard.
Sports are always going to be viewed as to whether you win or you don't, and that's just how it is. But you're right. It doesn't necessarily mean that means you're successful. So, look, I look at so many, and you probably know, I look at so many people that I played with that are great people, and they have failed in a lot of things in their life. So, did sports help them or not? Like, so this is a great dilemma for me as a obviously and you have a daughter, and eventually you're going to start to get to this point too. Sports become sports is a big driver in a lot of people's lives, and the original driver of it was that sports helped you to be successful. Like they want to hire for jobs football players from college because they know discipline. And yes, there's a lot of truth to that. But if sports is taught that it's the only thing that matters, guys feel a loss after
when it's gone.
When it's gone, and a lot of them can't pick up their lives. I know a lot of guys that
absolutely.
Like you would have to unless you really we got into discussion of what I accomplished or what you accomplished, you wouldn't really know, because I don't really get into it like with people unless they want to talk about it. So, but I know a lot of people.
I work with a guy, right? My head coach, same way. That's because that's what's defined them for so long, Dave. Right?
A lot of people lead with it, and I think that's like that makes it your life harder. So if you're
Because you're
leading,
constantly trying to chase that.
you're trying to chase that excitement, and it's never. I mean, I hate to
There's
get
never
the
gonna look,
I
and
hate to
I
let the
hate
word out, you know.
right. Hey,
But
sorry to burst
it's
everybody's
never
bubble,
gonna
but
be as
nothing is ever
exciting.
gonna feel as good as
No, it's
sorry,
not gonna
guys.
feel
Like,
as,
look, was I juiced up and excited when I saw
and you'll
my
never
baby
be
daughter
as
for the
sad
first
too when it
time
didn't go
ever?
as well. Those emotions,
100%.
good and bad, and that's the addictive part.
100%.
That's the
Correct.
addictive
And
part to
people
it.
don't know how to like
That's Scotty Scheffler talked about this the other day. Did you see this?
really?
So Scotty Scheffler talked about how now he's at the top and he's making all kinds of money, so people are like skeptical. But this is, I think there's
Yeah.
truth to it. He talks about how, like, I'm going out, I win, like, then then what? Like, so so it's kind of like now he's at the highest level. Okay, he gets that excitement. He loves winning. He talks about it, but it's like, is that the be all end all? Like, what am I? So that's
Right.
this is a guy who's at the highest thing. Now, obviously, other people feel differently, but if that's only what defines you, then I think other parts of your life can be hard. And I think a lot of
Very
athletes,
hard.
I know so many guys. Like, I mean, I'm in my 50s, right? So
There's nothing
they,
to fill that void for them, Dave.
they've
They can't
never filled
find
the
anything
void.
that does that, especially if you were the guy. Like
They,
like we talk about it. Quarterbacks. Like, dude, when you're the quarterback, like even within your life, like a lot of those guys struggle in relationships because you know what I mean? Like that type of aspect where
you're the
yeah, your
man.
wife right. Like now all of a sudden you're not, dude. Like I'll be the first to admit it. Like I have a little daughter. Do I know everything about what it's like? Hell no. Like my wife, like she takes the leadership role in that. And yes, is that an adjustment as to when you're always the person and now in the next phase of your life you're not? Like that is really hard for some guys to do. And it's why you see guys they just now all of a sudden they're doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing because they're trying to chase that whatever feeling of being the quarterback again. Like it's guys, it's not gonna happen. Hopefully you do find something, right?
Right.
Like that should be taught as well in my eyes
Yes.
as a high level athlete. Hey guys, at some point this is gonna end. And now the transition to a new role or something within that is something you're going to have to accept. If you don't, you're going to be battling these demons forever and no way to live because it's going to with you.
When you see a
promise.
70-year-old man, can you tell who was a great athlete or who wasn't? No, they're 70 years old. You couldn't tell unless you had a conversation with them. You wouldn't really know, right?
Right, 100%.
So it's that's the hard, but
And it's very visible to people that are just looking at, like, you know what I mean? Like you can tell right away. And I think it's things like why, people are still in their 60s or 70s and they're still talking about their playing days, right? Like you said,
okay.
they lead with that. Like
you lead with it all the time.
What else have you done, man? What else have you done? Shit.
Yeah. Yep. Or like, what else do you enjoy? Like, find another thing that you enjoy.
Find a fucking hobby. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, shit. It doesn't have to be within athletics, even though I think that's why a lot of people love the sport of golf.
That's true.
You can it's almost like you're never going to achieve that highest level of success. Like, you're never going to hit a hole in one on every.
Right.
Right. Or you're never going to, like, I think that's why Michael Jordan, who's everything I've read and all of the research I've done is that he is an like the highest of the high. It's probably why he loves golf, bro. He can go out to this, he can play the same course, do the same, like, and just never achieve a perfect score. Like, is, the ultimate. And that chase is what he really enjoys, right? Is that process. Kobe in the gym working out 5 times a day when he's already the scoring champ and winning titles and doing all that. Why is it Nick Saban wins the national championship on Monday? Tuesday, he's back on the road recruiting to get better to win the next one, right? It's more of the chase, I think, that people enjoy. Because I used to love the process, right? We talk about training camp. I loved training camp because it was football all day, every day. And you were just that, like, you never knew what was going on in the outside world when you were in that training camp thing. How many years were the Olympics a part of it? And you never knew who won gold medals because you were so focused on training, right? Like, but I loved that because it was all in, and that's hard to bridge that and get out of that. When now, like, because some people like, you're absolutely crazy. They're like, what do you mean that's all that, like, you're worried about? Right? It's like, that's what this is, right? Like, people call you crazy. You know what I mean? That's always kind of my gauge of, like, how into something are you? If people tell you, dude, you're out of your mind. Like, what about this, this, and this? You're not thinking about this, this, and this. And it might be some of the most important shit that's going on, but you have no, it's to the side because this is where it is. That dial laser focus, really difficult for people to navigate that world where it's just not it anymore. It's hard. I mean, I'm sure you went through it. I went through it. It's why I still coach and do everything that I'm doing, is because you're always trying to get back to that or feel that again. And like you said, it's the addiction aspect. It's like drugs, man. You're going to achieve that original high. Not going to happen. Good luck, but you're chasing it.
That's true. Very, very true. Great podcast. I'm trying. That was
good. Next week we're good. Next week.
I'm trying to get my cough. I don't know.
One of those guys that gets a cold during the summer.
No, it's. I think it's something else.
New lungs.
I think it might be. I honestly think it might be. I've had 3 vocal cord surgeries, and I'm worried that maybe one of my vocal cords is having like spasming, and if that's the case, like, I'm going through the process of each doctor at a time. But if that's the case,
you might not have to talk for a while, buddy. Holy.
No, it wouldn't even be that. It would be like it would be surgery. They would do something there, but we're not there yet. So, but that's my inclination.
It's not an issue until it's really an issue.
I've had 3 vocal cord surgeries, so like.
Because you sing too much in the shower, buddy.
It's from, I don't know. I got them.
It's a combination of, think about it. We are,
coaching, I guess.
Our voices carry, right? But I know mine, like, especially now having coached for, this will be 16th season. It used to be, if we played on Friday night, like, I didn't have a voice till Monday, right? Like, it was really difficult. Right. But, and you can, now, like, even just the other night coaching in an all-star game where, I was yelling for, hey, specialty, punt, get ready, like, all that. Like, I'm raspy, I'm this, that.
How was that?
My grandmother taught me this. It was phenomenal. What a great experience.
What were you saying? I'm sorry. Go ahead before you say that.
No. I'm saying, like, my grandmother, who is a singer, high level, like, sang in church, was a music teacher, the whole thing. Like, some of the little things that she had always done to keep her voice where it needed to be, right? Like, just little things like literally, like, hey, if I have an event where I'm singing, like, I need to really, like, focus in on how much I'm going to talk after it, or how I'm going to prepare myself for this so that it's not such a drop off when I don't, you know what I mean? So I get my peak performance. I mean, just little, like, whether they're old wives' tales or not, or whatever, like, hot tea or just hot water or little shit like that, dude. Like, it's, I mean, and she's 90 now and can still freaking let it fly. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's crazy the amount of, like, you realize I don't think as coaches, you know what I mean? How much we actually are projecting and raising that level of it to kind of like get our point across, I guess. Really kind of, dove into other ways of doing that. Like, I don't need to yell all this, you know what I mean? Like, whether it be whatever, certain things that have taken away from that to save it, because I don't want to be, 50 years old and not have a voice. I mean, shit, for as much as I talk and all that other kind of stuff, like, come on, dude. Like, I lose that. Like, all right, find another way. But, I'm sure AI can handle it for me.
Maybe. What were you going to say about the game, by the way?
Oh, the game was great. It was a great experience. Like I said, it was, you're coaching the highest level players within, Ocean and Monmouth County. It's I didn't know some of the history of it. It's the longest running all-star game in the state. That was the 48th contest. A lot of people, right? Like, it was a really great event. They do it really well. Barnegat was an excellent host, great facility to play at and whatnot. And then ultimately, great game. Like, unfortunately, we came out on the losing end, 13-7 in overtime.
Right.
But, I mean, that's kind of what you want an all-star game to be, right? The first two quarters, you're kind of like figuring all out. And then, it comes down to like, your Jimmies and Joes, your players, like who's going to make a play, who's not going to make a play. And really what it was, but great experience. Got to be around a lot of high level coaches, older coaches, to get the history and the tradition and stuff and how it was. And then, current coaches and, what works for their programs and that. And it's only, it's a quick stop. It's 4 days of practice. That's it. You know what I mean? So, what can you coach with simplicity so that the kids can understand it and they can do what they do, right? So I think that's a lot of it too. Like, allow players to go play. Now, how you navigate time is a huge issue from what I've seen post game, right? Like, I only got this many snaps, or I got this. So how do you balance getting kids playing time, but also trying to win the game at the same time, right? I don't think, because, parents want both. Like, they want the kid to play a lot, and they want, I don't know if mad's really the word. And I'm not talking just players. I'm talking parents, head coaches that weren't in the game, of kids that were on the roster, but like, hey, my kid rushed for 1,000 yards. He was the division player of the year, and he only got this many snaps. Like, and then if he did get snaps, how come he didn't carry the ball, or he wasn't, you know what I mean? And for the kids, to me, it's the first taste of, hey, buddy, this is what, if you're playing at that next level, you're just one of a many good players that you're going to have to know your role. Like, maybe you are only running down on kickoff, or you're not going to get the carry when the ball is inside the 5 because this guy's better, or this guy is more willing to do something that he's not, but he's on the field. It's just, there's a lot to it. I kind of feel a little bit for my cousin, who is the head coach, and just kind of, look, we're all out there volunteering our time, and we think like we're doing everybody a favor by taking on these roles, when in reality, like, really, like, he should be taking shit because he did something out of the goodness of his heart to kind of, be in that role. But like, now he's taking shit because, it is what it is. Like, understand what's really going into it. Yeah. I don't want to get a bigger thing than it is, because, look, at the end of the day, it's all good. It is what it is. But it's just, it's kind of a microcosm of what society is right now, where it doesn't matter what you do, it's never going to be good enough, like, regardless of, so you just got to take ownership of it and note it and go. But what an awesome experience, dude. To see so many of our guys on both rosters, in terms of guys that have either played for us with the Beasts, or kids that have come to showcases and we've helped get to that next level. It was unbelievable. I wish I could have really taken a picture with the amount of guys that have gone, or that we've reached out to or touched in some way, shape, or form. It would have easily been over. You're talking about 2 rosters of 48 guys, and I can easily point out over 10 that have been with us in some way, shape, or form. So it was really cool in that retrospect.
Awesome.
Like, awesome. Yeah. It was different though, man. It was different. Really hard to coach with certain, because there's rules to an all-star game. I don't know if people know that. It's not like you just roll it out and you're playing high school football rules. Like they put different rules in place to either protect the kid or whatever. I mean, crazy stuff. Like, I mean, I'm not crazy stuff, but for us crazy as coaches to be like, wait, I can't play man-to-man or coverage, or I can't get in an empty formation, or I can only rush the interior 4 on punt. Like, little things like that. One of our players this year, Jackson, Tom's River North kid, great kid. We've had him for a couple of years, right? Like he was stoked because, he could run kickoffs out of the end zone. Like if it was in the end zone, right? It wasn't an automatic dead ball. So he was juiced for that. But what he didn't take into account was these are 2 all-stars that are just gonna put it through the end zone anyway. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it was awesome. It was really good. Our guys were key components on both sides of the ball. So it was pretty fun just to see that kind of stuff.
I saw that. That's cool. And there's a good crowd. I saw it was a good crowd there.
A lot of people. I don't know what the numbers were, but both stands were filled 2 deep along the fence the entire way, and look, I give the referees credit too, bro, because they're with a different set of rules and they're taking shit from both sides about like, what are you going to do? Yeah, it's an all-star game. So like, you know what I mean? Like everybody, it's just like, but it was cool. It was interesting to see how like teams and coaching staffs and everybody can come together with only 4 days of practice. Any coach on here that understands what it takes to go into a game and not only feel prepared in that you've done everything you could for your kids to put them in the best situations, but to see how, you can kind of like really, when you hone in on focus over quality over quantity and get things done, the high level of success. And then also some of those things that you might have missed, how having really good players makes up for that.
Oh yeah.
Because they can just go out there and do what they do, dude. And you're like, holy shit. Like, okay, that was good. But for me personally,
really
I was
fun.
I was just really juiced that like as a special teams guy, really in an all-star game, like no substitution penalties. That was cool. I'm good with that, buddy. Like we didn't have to call a timeout because we didn't have enough guys or we had too many guys. Like it was a very good operation. So kudos to the kids for buying in, and then kudos to the guys that really helped out doing that because that was awesome. It was really cool.
Did they how did the lineman thing ended up working out? You guys were okay the whole time? I know there was
absolutely like we were in low numbers. Like for anybody that really kind of knows, like when it comes to an all-star game like this, especially it being in July, like some of the really really good scholarship guys aren't available to be. They're gone. They're on campus already at their colleges, right? So they're kind of gone. And then especially now you look at linemen, right? Like your bigs, like guys are recruiting linemen because like, hey, he's got size, he's whatever. I mean, just our numbers in that facet, we were a little low, but we were okay. We came out on top. Guys were, everybody got healthy, which is like one of the most important things to it, because you don't want these guys getting hurt in a freaking all-star game, and now they're behind the 8 ball going to the next level and whatnot. And the kids were great. And everybody that put it all together. Kudos to Jay Glazman for the Monmouth side, who's an assistant at Mid-North, and John Tierney, who's the head coach of Pine side as the GMs, and getting these kids on the roster with where they needed to be, and handled all the logistical stuff to it. But everybody that was a part of it, man, it was real cool. And I've been a part of a lot of all-star games, whether it was up north or, in the Robeson game or the Bergen County game or, the North Side game.
I think you did our game too, right?
Yes, New York, New Jersey, right? Like those are and you've been behind it. It's really hard to put all these pieces together. So they did a really, really good job. The short conference, I think it's Mark Cosentino, Lou Versillo, and Joe Martino, kind of the 3, pretty much figureheads of this game and the short. Yeah, they're all like the big 3 in terms of the organizational of it and the rules aspect of it, and just making sure all those pieces go together. Obviously there's a lot of older guys that have been a part of it for a really long time. whole game day thing. Look, they honored all the academic guys that were there, even if they weren't playing in the game. Put guys into the Hall of Fame and whatnot. Look, I know we're North Jersey guys, but the Shore Conference does it the right way.
Well,
they do some really cool. Yeah, they do. They do some really cool shit, and it's just you can tell that it's been a thing and people care about it, right? Like you could tell there was a lot of people that look forward to this every year, right? And I know the site changes and those types of things and sponsorships and all that kind of, but it was really cool to see it how it came together. Look, and we know some states that don't do anything like this, right? Like they don't allow that to happen. But for me, I would lobby it because I think it's great. Like I just think it's great. It's competitive, but it's also respectful. Like, the guys get after it. But they know each other they know the kids on the other side. They've been playing against them for 4 years. And now this might be their opportunity for, a group 1 guy who's never played against, a private school guy or a group 5 guy. Like he just sees his, on X or on social media or in the newspaper or whatever it is. And now he gets to go play against him and kind of stack up and see where it's at. Guys are trying to prove that, yeah, I am as good as everybody says I am. Like I here, I don't know. It's just really cool. You see guys that, hey, maybe they were, the starting quarterback of their team for 4 years. And now all of a sudden, like, they're now, right? Like they're the second guy or whatever. So how do they get into those roles? And, it's a great bridge for those guys next year, right? Like I've always been the starting runner, but now I'm going to go run down on kickoff, like cool stuff like that, man. That really, it's as a coach, you see it and, but as like your common fan, not know really kind of what it goes into because all you do is show up on game day. But a great experience. I really enjoyed being a part of it. For me personally, there was other things, with majority of the staff was related to me in some way, shape or form in terms of family. And that was really cool. Getting to coach with my cousin and whatnot. And, it was all positive,
right.
Because look, we have very different viewpoints on certain things. And yes, back and forth on the sideline for certain shit. Absolutely. But that's kind of, just who we are. But overall, really great experience to see a lot of these things and made some really, really cool relationships. Other coaches, but, players too, guys that, hey coach, I've known who you are, but now I get to actually put a face, to who's, the post and all that other kind of stuff. So it was cool, man. It was awesome, actually.
Very, very cool. Sounds fantastic, dude. Sounds fantastic.
And listen, at the end of the day, we all love coaching some really good Jimmys and Joes, and that was fun too, right? Because you're coaching guys that it's like, holy shit, like this kid who can play, right? It's like, whoa, he is everything that everybody said it was. You know what I'm saying? So that was cool.
That makes it fun.
I mean, I'll tell you, 100%. You know what I mean? And like those guys, like, Monmouth County, like phenomenal group of players. Like those kids played their asses off. Same with our team. Ocean kids played their asses off. And so that it was cool. And then to have like a really good game. Like it wasn't sloppy. It wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't like holding penalty, clip penalty. You know what I mean? It wasn't a lot of it was, just high level competition and on both sides of the ball. And to do all that like in a 4-day span, freaking awesome, man.
Sounds good, dude. Fantastic. We'll have a great weekend. And
you too, buddy. We got a really good lineup for next week.
Good. I'll be on vacation, so I'll
Me
let
too.
you know.
I'll be in Florida.
All right. So if there's some that you have to take or whatever, we'll figure it out.
Excited. We get to talk to Manny Matsakis again, who is all about his. Hey, we scored 169 points to 0 in the games of the season, and then to have Chris Corfus coming on, I'm excited about that. The other aspect of Tony Holler's, like, I mean, we're at a high level, so I'm excited about it. But enjoy your weekend, man. Get rid of that cough.
Well, we'll see if I can. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See you guys.